right, everybody, this is Lecture 23, Part 2, PC in the HD era. So we're talking about PC gaming in that same time frame as we talked about casual gaming from 2005 to roughly 2012. And a lot of this, there's a lot of experimentation going on in gaming on the PC at this time. It's really interesting. So PC gaming really has a big resurgence with new types of games and new business models. PCs also benefit from a longer console life cycle. Remember, the Xbox 360 comes out in 2005. The Wii U doesn't come out until 2012, and the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 don't come out until 2014. So this was an extremely long console generation, which PC gaming had a lot of experimenting and a pretty fast growth during this period due to coming up with some hit genres and some really fully embracing digital distribution. So we got a few new genres in this era: the casual and social games, which we talked a lot about in that first section, which goes across both mobile and PC. So we're not really going to go over that too much here. We are going to talk about indie games in particular, as they became a big sort of branch of gaming unto themselves on the PC in this era. And of course, we'll talk about the multiplayer online battle arenas, or MOBAs, Dota 2, and of course the big one, the most well-known, League of Legends. PC gaming also got a new business model, the heavy shift to digital distribution, which is pretty much complete by the end of this era. The subscription model that had previously been used for MMORPGs like World of Warcraft, sort of spreading to other game genres, and of course the sort of the ubiquitous aspect of free to play. I might have phrased that wrong, but anyway, free to play comes on PC and becomes a big deal. We're not going to talk about free to play in this lecture. We're going to save that for lecture 24 because it is such a big topic that I want to make sure we have enough time to look at it carefully. That being said, let's get on to talking about the other parts of PC gaming in this era. Digital distribution becomes dominant. A lot of competitors' Steam have showed up. EA, Origins from EA, Uplay from Ubisoft. GameStop has their own digital download app. Amazon has one. So of course, at the point of this being that Steam is still the most dominant player in this market, but as digital distribution has become the way to get games on PC, a lot of competitors have emerged. Epic Game Store is the most recent and probably the most well-funded player to compete in the space. Digital distribution became the dominant sales model for PC games. By 2013, over 90% of all sales were digital. They do have a lot of voucher cards, and you can see these if you go into a Target or Best Buy or GameStop. So things that are almost like gift cards that you can use either for a particular game store, like a Steam, a $25 Steam gift card, or a League of Legends gift card. Sometimes they're for specific games, sometimes they're for digital distribution platforms. So it does give games and companies a retail presence, even though almost all of the game distribution is now done online in terms of PC gaming. So focusing heavily here on indie games for a couple of slides. What makes a game indie? What's the difference between an indie game and a regular game? And where do we find these indie games? Well, the first thing is, when we used to say an indie game, what we meant was a game that did not have a big publisher. So a game that was either self-produced or produced by a small team of people. So it's independent of Activision or EA or Ubisoft or any of the sort of big traditional gaming companies. These games follow the trend of casual games. They're often smaller. They're often shorter in length. They're maybe not as technologically intensive as like a Red Dead Redemption 2 or top of the line shooter that requires ray tracing and that kind of stuff. They often also have sort of like wacky or offbeat topics, right? Goat Simulator or Limbo. These are games that would probably not get funding in the traditional publishing model, and it's modeled somewhat after the idea of independent film, right? If Universal puts down $35 million to $100 million for a movie, they expect it to hit certain benchmarks of quality of topics so they can get their money back. Indie film tends to be a much more smaller, more personal production, and may be as lucrative in the long run, but generally allows you to cover topics that mainstream movie companies don't want to do. And indie games follow that same model. And where do we find these indie games? They're everywhere. They're digitally distributed, again, sort of along that casual model we talked about earlier. So indie games rapidly increase in popularity through this era. Again, they're self-published, and this is generally what gives the developer the freedom to make the game they want with no content restrictions. This is your Stardew Valleys, your Fez, your Gone Home, your Limbo, your Inside. Goat Simulator. I mean, there's hundreds of these. And that self-publishing is one of the key things because it allows these sort of offbeat games to be made. If you were going to tell me, hey, Don, I got this great idea for a game, you take a goat and you just go wreak random havoc in a sandbox environment. Can I have $10 million, please? EA is not going to give you $10 million, right? Self-funded. Or, hey, I got this idea for this really gentle, nice game where you inherit your grandpa's farm and you need to turn it into a great big success over a 2-year time period in the game. Again, you're not going to get big bucks for that. So these are digitally distributed. They're self-published. They have small developed teams, generally one to a small 20. I guess 20 is not necessarily small, but one to a pretty small team. Shovel Knight's another good example of this. And again, you're generally looking at a lower cost to develop than a traditional AAA game, right? You're not trying to render the most amount of polygons with realistic textures and fancy real-time lighting stuff. You're really trying to make the vision of your game come true. So this does give us a lot of variation in the types of games. And these games are all over the place. I mean, there's all kinds of these. There are hundreds of these. Undertale is a good example of sort of an offbeat RPG. Gundam Fest. We'll look at quite a few of these on the stream and talk about, you know, what makes them sort of special. Minecraft, of course, is the purchase by Microsoft in 2014, 2015. I can't remember. Is sort of seen as the start of the sort of indie gold rush. Minecraft, we will definitely look at on the stream, is a world building game sold directly to consumers via download. It had 24 million copies on PC, 106 million copies across all devices. It's on everything. This is a good example of an indie game. The original version, I think, was done in Java, so it had really low technical requirements. It worked on everything. You could buy it once, and then every time it got updated, you would get the update for free. It relied completely on digital distribution in its initial incarnation. There were no physical copies of this to be purchased. It was PC centric when it first came out. It's like virtual Legos. It puts you in this cool survival mode where you can like build whatever you want and try to just build what you want in this world while you're trying to live. They added all kinds of things over the years. Microsoft bought them out for $2.5 billion in 2014. So clearly, this was a very lucrative model. It was part of the Smithsonian's Art of Video Games exhibit, and this really sort of opened the floodgates for small, independently developed games to be seen as a viable commodity, particularly on Steam and with game consumers, right? It didn't necessarily mean, it didn't have to be just wacky and offbeat. It just had to be sort of different and original. There just weren't a lot of games like Minecraft when it first came out, right? It was really the idea, the developer and the small company he created to make it and maintain it, and it showed that there was a big wide market for this. So again, Minecraft is wildly successful. Obviously, when you sell out's the wrong word. Obviously, when you sell your company for $2.5 billion to Microsoft, you've done something right. The last thing we'll touch on before we switch over to free to play in lecture 24 is the advent of the MOBAs. So these are multiplayer online battle arena, and these are a good example of games that use digital distribution. They are free to play, so they take advantage of that trend. I realize I've got some on my screen there. They are also a good example of like a subscription or lifestyle game. Not a subscription, but a lifestyle game or games as a service where they're constantly changing and updating this. And if you participate, you get to take advantage of all those changes. So the original game, Dota, it was derived from Defense of the Ancients, which was an original mod for Warcraft 3. The gameplay is team-based with set objectives, so you can view it as sort of a sporting event. This is one of the most popular esports things. They broadcast this on ESPN. This is one of the key League of Legends, I should say, is one of the big key games in the sort of the esports movement. Dota 2 from Valve also widely popular and they have the Dota International, which is teams of players compete against each other for cash prizes. So again, these games both heavily utilize the free to play. So the potential number of players is in the millions, and they make their money by offering. I think the cast of characters in these games, they're teams of 5, and every week they change who's available for free. But if you find a character you really like, you can pay $5 or $10 or whatever it is and have that character available to you all the time. Then you can buy fancy skins for that character so they have a different appearance than other versions of that character. So there's a pretty lucrative revenue model for these style games as people invest their time in them. This League of Legends made about $1.6 billion in 2015. So prior to Fortnite, it was probably the biggest PC game going. They were talking at one point they had an average of 27 million players per day. And again, this just takes advantage of that free to play scale issue, right? When anyone can play your game and you have you have 50 million people paying for free and you sell $2 thing to 1% of them a day, you've made, I don't know, like $1 million, $2 million a day or something. I'm really bad at math, so you guys can figure that out. But anyway, it's really lucrative. And again, this is not a game I can easily demo on the stream because you can't jump in and out of matches. But this is something if you are not familiar with MOBAs or want to see what the actual gameplay is like, I might link a YouTube video to one of the esports games in an extra video list like I made for the Grand Theft Auto lecture. We'll stop there today with PC gaming. I'm trying to get these lectures down a little bit. They've been a little long lately. And we'll come back in lecture 24 and take a really sort of more exhaustive look at how free to play has been implemented on the PC side of things. All right. I hope everybody is safe and well. And I will talk to you on the stream on Tuesday. Take care.